Today I'm going to explore the Austrian city of Wels, a city that's not so well known outside Austria. It's Austria's 8th largest city with a population of about 65,000. It may not be huge, but it does go back a long way. People lived in the area as far back as the Neolithic age, a period that covers 3,500 to 1700 BC. People were here during the Bronze Age, and Celts populated the area up to the 1st century BC in the late Iron Age. And then Wels became an important Roman city right in the middle of the Roman province of Noricum, when the city was called Ovilava. After the Romans, the city may have shrunk for a while, but ultimately it survived as a trading centre with its position on the River Traun giving it an advantage. There's a lot to explore here, so without further ado, let's go. The Stadtplatz forms the historic city centre of Wels. It's about 500 metres long and is bordered to the northeast by the Wels Parish Church and to the southwest by the Ledererturm Tower. The Ledererturm got its name from the leatherworkers' trade. It's named after the medieval leatherworkers who lived and worked in the surrounding area, as it was once part of the city's fortifications near their workshops. Here you can see it magnificently decorated with lights on a December night. It is the last remaining tower of the medieval city fortifications of Wels and is almost 38 metres high. The other 3 towers were demolished in the 19th century. In fact, a Lederertor, a city gate or entrance, was first documented in 1326. These evening views of the Christmas market on the Stadtplatz were taken during the Welse Weihnachtswelt, which means Wales Christmas World in English. The development of the Stadtplatz to its present size probably began in the 13th century. The streets served as a marketplace from the Middle Ages through to the 20th century. The importance of the markets in Wales was fueled by population growth and also by the flourishing salt production in the southern part of Upper Austria. The street features well-preserved houses with facades from various periods, including Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque. This example of a Renaissance house is known as the Weißes Freihaus. It was built in 1589 by Christoph Weiss, and its facade and window frames feature faceted blocks. And this is the Kremsmünsterer Hof on the Stadtplatz. This house has a very charming 18th century Rococo facade with the stucco ornamentation typical of Baroque buildings, which effectively frames the windows. Behind this gorgeous facade is a hotel. It was Rupert Trinker, a major textile merchant and one of the most important traders in Wales, who built the Kremsmünsterer Hof, and he commissioned the construction of the arcaded courtyard. The arcaded courtyard is reached from the Stadtplatz by walking through the covered passageway. The Rathaus, which is equivalent to a city hall in England, has a beautiful Rococo facade decorated with stucco. The original city hall on Stadtplatz was housed in one Gothic building purchased in 1447, which was rebuilt in 1491–92. That was then extended into the neighbouring house in 1587, and a renovation took place from 1738 to 1739, producing a unified Baroque facade. Opposite the Rathaus is the Stadtbrunnen, which means city fountain in English. It's a replica of a 16th century Renaissance town fountain which was demolished. One of the prettiest buildings on the Stadtplatz is the Haus der Salome Alt, which means Salome Alt's house in English. It was built in the first half of the 16th century by the Emperor Ferdinand I. In 1552 the Freiherren von Hoffmann, which means the Hoffmann Barons in English, took possession of it, and their coats of arms are still visible painted between the oriel windows. Salome Alt von Altenau bought the house in 1622. She was the long-time mistress of Salzburg's Archbishop Wolf Dietrich von Reithenau, with whom she had 15 or possibly 16 children. I love the painted-on brickwork and the decorations around and below the windows. On the Stadtplatz opposite the Haus der Salome Alt is the Stadtpfarrkirche, which means City Parish Church in English. It's the oldest church in Wales and it dominates the northeastern end of the Stadtplatz. The church was first documented in the year 888. However, during the 13th century it was demolished and replaced by a Romanesque basilica, and then, in the 14th century, it was remodelled into a Gothic three-aisled church, although Romanesque elements can still be found today. The west tower was heightened and topped with an onion dome in the first half of the 18th century. In 2019, the copper cladding on the onion dome and spire of the church was renewed. Here you can see the church from Fahrgasse, a lane with lots of shops that leads to the Stadtplatz. Back on Stadtplatz, and only a few metres from the church, is a shop that sells traditional Austrian clothes, a Trachten shop. Embedded in the facade of this building is the Römer Medaillon, which means Roman medallion in English. It's a relief of a man and a woman, presumably a married couple, that came from a Roman gravestone. The Burggarten, or Castle Garden in English, borders the back of the Haus der Salome Alt, which is visible here along with the parish church. This is the largest garden in the city. The current appearance of the central lawns with the flower swirl was created for the 1997 State Garden Show. The paved courtyard in front of Wales Castle is used for events, including concerts. The enclosed open space of this former private garden became a municipal green space in 1937 when it was purchased by the City of Wales, whose original plans to establish a flower nursery for the city's funeral home on the existing castle garden grounds were not implemented. This garden is home to the Burg Wales, which means Wales Castle in English. The building dates back to the Middle Ages. Today it houses the Wales City Museum and also includes a museum of expellees. Originally a wooden structure, it was rebuilt in stone in the 12th or 13th century. It was rebuilt again in the late Gothic style between 1508 and 1514 by Emperor Maximilian I, who died in the castle in 1519. But the late emperor lives on in the form of this bust in the Burggarten. The garden is also home to a lapidarium of embedded gravestones along part of its boundary. The museum's collection of gravestones dates from the 15th to 19th centuries. Running from the Stadtplatz and next to the Burggarten is this narrow residential lane, the Burggasse. Crossing the lane are flying buttresses that support the walls of the buildings on each side. The Schmidtgasse is another side lane that leads off the Stadtplatz. Today this busy street is full of shops and cafes. For example, this is Urban, a popular confectioner as well as a cafe, and the building also includes a bar. In the past, numerous blacksmith workshops were located on this street, and Schmidtgasse means blacksmith lane in English. Schmidtgasse has its own side lanes too. This one is called Johannisgasse, and here we see it leading back onto Schmidtgasse. At each end of Schmidtgasse in 2025 was a lion sculpture. There were 27 of these to be found around the city. They formed a Löwen safari, which means lion's safari in English. They were sponsored by the city and many companies and showcased the creative diversity of local artists while raising money for charity. The safari was organised by the Wales Lions Clubs. At the junction of Schmidtgasse with the Stadtplatz is this 125 centimetre tall statue of Venus. It's a cast bronze replica of a 15 centimetre tall bronze statuette found in 1917 in nearby Gunskirchen. The original dates from the 1st to 2nd century AD and is on display at the city's archaeological museum on the Minoritenplatz. And in the wall here is a replica of the Welser Metzen, which was a dry measure for grain. The original was made around 1552 or 53 and is in the city museum. Since 1595 the Metzen has held approximately 75 litres. By the way, these 4 metre high 3D giant flowers next to Venus are summer street decorations. Hidden behind Schmidtgasse and reachable from the Stadtplatz through a long passage is the Haus Arkadenhof, which means house courtyard in English. It dates from the 16th century and is one of the most beautiful arcaded courtyards in Wales. The ground floor is also home to a popular restaurant and bar. Hafergasse, which means Oat Lane in English, is a narrow side street that leads south from the Stadtplatz to Altstadt, which means Old City in English. But Altstadt was not the starting point of medieval urban development and was only gradually developed. Brick buildings with mostly plain facades replaced the wooden barns that used to be here, and the area became known as Altstadt in the 19th century. This exit leads to Traungasse, another lane that leads off the Stadtplatz. This is the Minoritenplatz. It's next to the Stadtplatz and Rathaus and is home to a former Franciscan monastery. The Minoriten monastery was founded around 1280 and dissolved by Emperor Joseph II in 1785. Today the Wels City Museum houses its archaeology department here. Next to the museum is the Schießerhof, a late Gothic commercial building from 1598, which since 2024 has been home to the Galerie der Stadt Wels, which means Wels City Gallery in English. This arch leads from the Minoritenplatz to Amtsfinger. Amtsfinger is a green space for recreation which runs alongside the city wall. This would probably be called a bailey in English, which is a level area surrounding a fortification. On Amtsfinger is the Wasserturm, which means water tower in English. It was built between 1577 and 1579 to supply the city with water for drinking, firefighting and fountains. A pumping station inside the tower pumped water from the neighbouring Mühlbach stream into a reservoir. I love the decoration on the tower. The cornerstones are painted on and the 6 window openings on each side are also surrounded by decorative paintwork. Alongside Amtsfinger runs the Mühlbach, which means mill stream in English. This stream was probably used as a mill stream from the beginning of the Middle Ages, and earlier, before the construction of private wells, it provided drinking water for the old town. The Mühlbach is a tributary of the River Traun and about 30 kilometres long. I love this little water wheel. Amtsfinger is home to a stretch of the 13th century city wall, which averaged 1.5 metres thick, was 2 metres thick in places, and had a wooden parapet walk. In front of the medieval wall was a 4.5 metre wide outer bailey and then a 22 metre wide moat. By the second half of the 15th century at the latest, a second lower wall was built in front of the main wall, and Amtsfinger is the area that was contained between the walls. The ditch was later drained and filled in. Amtsfinger is also home to this 1961 memorial tablet to the dead of the Donauschwaben, or Danube Swabians. Persecution and a diaspora of Danube Swabians followed the Second World War, and many also died. This is the junction of Amtsfinger and Traungasse, and here there's a gorgeous wayside chapel which was built in 1732 and which is dedicated to St. John of Nepomuk, the saint of raftsmen, whose statue in the niche is surrounded by angels. At the junction of Amtsfinger with Pollheim Strasse is this Römischer Meilenstein, which means Roman milestone in English. The Romans had an excellent road network marked by milestones. This one has been moved from its original site, but it is from Wales, and the inscription refers to the 3rd century emperor Maximinus in the year 236 AD. The milestone is also close to the Lederturm and Stadtplatz, and from the Stadtplatz it's possible to drive or walk through the Lederturm onto Pollheim Strasse. The Pollheim Strasse is a busy road that runs past the Pollheim Park. Just down the road is the Velios Science Centre, which houses a permanent interactive exhibition focusing on science and technology, particularly renewable energies. Its 2,500 square metres contain approximately 150 exhibits. In the other direction, an information board greets you on the way into Pollheim Park. There are a lot of these around the city. The area now occupied by Pollheim Park was formerly occupied by the Outer Bailey, which was next to the city wall, and the moat, which was filled in. Pollheim Park was laid out in 1888 as the city's first municipal garden. The park is also home to a number of memorials. This memorial at one of the entrances to the Freiung is dedicated to the Jewish people who were persecuted or killed by the Nazi regime. And this neighbouring memorial tablet lists names of anti-Nazi resistance fighters who lost their lives. This memorial close to Ringstrasse remembers the victims of the Austrian resistance against the Nazi regime, including those murdered at the Mauthausen concentration camp. It's inscribed Den Opfern für die Freiheit Österreichs, or in English, to the victims for the freedom of Austria. And this memorial commemorates riders of the No. 4 Dragoner Regiment, which in English means Dragoon Regiment. In Pollheim Park there are several stained glass sculptures by artist Isabella Scharf-Minichmayr. Installed in 2022, they are a memorial to peace and symbolise the hope for a positive future. They form part of the Kunst im Park project. Kunst im Park means art in the park in English. In 2023, this glass mural was added. It's by the same artist and depicts the Lederturm. The city's Christmas market, the Welse Weihnachtsfeld, also extends from the Stadtplatz into Pollheim Park. Opposite Pollheim Park is the Medien Kulturhaus, which means Media and Culture House in English. It's an early 20th century building that was originally a bank and includes an art house cinema for Wales, an Indian restaurant, a bar and facilities for youth media production, education and creative work. Schloss Pollheim, which means Pollheim Castle in English, was part of the medieval city fortifications. The castle was likely founded around the mid-13th century. The building formed the northwest corner of the walled medieval town. The entrance to the castle courtyard was formerly secured by a drawbridge and a moat, which was filled in 1875. This memorial plaque beside the north portal of Schloss Pollheim depicts Hans Sachs, the 16th century shoemaker, poet, Meistersinger and dramatist, who stayed here during his journeyman years. The portal, which faces Ringstrasse, has a passageway that leads to an area called the Freiung. In the Middle Ages, a Freiung was an area free from certain taxes or other legal obligations. Schloss Pollheim was part of the Freiung and therefore free from the law of the city. Today, the area next to Schloss Pollheim includes a garden with a children's playground. There are several exits from the Freiung, including this one to Schmidtgasse. The Freiung is also home to the Theater Kornspeicher, which means granary theatre in English. It was built in the 16th century as a granary for a merchant's house. The two-storey building has been owned by the city since 1907, and in 1985 it was converted into a theatre. Today it offers seating for 140 people. At the back of the building is a courtyard with a very pretty garden. This garden, the Kornspeicher Park, is home to a bronze statue of a woman by Professor Franz Strahammer, who also created the bust of Emperor Maximilian I in the Burggarten. Beyond Pollheim Park and the Freiung, and parallel to the Stadtplatz, runs the Ringstrasse. It's an important shopping street and busy with traffic. Ringstrasse owes its existence to a great fire of 1870 in one of the side lanes, the Bäckergasse. After the fire, the city fathers decided to fill in the city moat, which at that time separated the city centre from the suburbs, and the current Ringstrasse was created. At the junction of Ringstrasse and Adlerstrasse is this Mariensäule, which means Marian column in English. In 1660 this column stood in the Minoritenplatz, next to the Franciscan monastery, but in the 19th century it was re-erected here. The Marian column stands opposite the Vorstadtpfarrkirche, which means suburban parish church in English. A Capuchin monastery was founded here in 1628, but Emperor Joseph II dissolved the monastery in 1785, and the monastery church became the second parish church of the city. Adlerstrasse also runs past the Burggarten and Stadtplatz, and there's another column here. This memorial is called the Dreifaltigkeitssäule, which means Trinity column in English. It's also known as the Plague column. It bears the year 1712 in memory of a year in which the plague raged in Upper Austria. The column is topped with a depiction of the Holy Trinity. Kaiser Josefplatz runs parallel to the Ringstrasse and Stadtplatz. As the Vorstadtplatz, it dates back to the Middle Ages. The street was later renamed after the Emperor Kaiser Joseph II, in whose honour a statue was built on Kaiser Josefplatz in 1884. It was later moved but still stands opposite the end of the street. Today, Kaiser Josefplatz is known as the city's bus interchange. Nevertheless, the street has some interesting buildings, for example the former Gasthaus zu den drei Kronen, which means Inn of the Three Crowns in English, has a magnificent Rococo facade, and a depiction of the Immaculate Conception. And the former Palais Salzburg, which means Salzburg Palace in English, is a Baroque building with a historical significance. Both Emperor Charles VI and Pope Pius VI stayed there. This building's beautiful facade also features a pair of stone eagles above the entrance. Further down Kaiser Josefplatz is the Hotel Gösserbrau, which is also a traditional Austrian Gasthaus. For me, a Gasthaus like this feels like a close relative of the traditional English pub. There's a good atmosphere, traditional Austrian cuisine, and a decent range of beer. And the large beer garden round the back also turns into a Christmas market called Goethe Advent from late November into December. The Goethe Advent is a very popular and busy addition to the Christmas scene in Wales. A plaque on the hotel's front wall commemorates the Pferdeisenbahn, which means horse-drawn railway in English. It ran from Budweis to Linz, then via Wales to Gmunden. This is Bakergasse, which means Baker Lane in English. It connects the Ringstrasse with Kaiser Josefplatz and forms a pedestrian zone along with Schmidtgasse. It is home to more shops and cafes. In fact, Schmidtgasse and Bakergasse combined have more than 60 shops. Just around the corner from the bus station on Ringstrasse is the Stadttheater Greif, which means Griffin City Theatre in English. It has existed since 1904. It seats 630 people and is used for events such as balls, cabaret, ballet performances and conferences. In the direction of the railway station on Martin Luther Platz is Christuskirche, which means Christ Church in English. This evangelical parish church was built in the mid-1800s in the neo-Gothic style. It has a 60-metre high tower. The main railway station, the Wels Hauptbahnhof, is at the northern edge of the city centre. A very busy international east-west main line runs through Wales via Linz to reach Vienna in the east, and to the west the line runs through Salzburg. There are connections here with smaller regional lines too. This means that from Wales it's also easy to reach international destinations including Munich in Germany and Innsbruck in Western Austria. Czechia's capital Prague can also be easily reached via Linz. And local destinations include the pretty lakeside town of Gmunden and the spa town of Bad Ischl. The station was completely rebuilt and reopened at the end of 2005. Not far from the station, in Schubertstrasse, traces of the city's Roman past can be seen. Wales, which was called Ovilava in Roman times, was surrounded by a wall, a remnant of which remains here. The Römische Stadtmauer, which means Roman city wall in English, was 4 kilometres long and was probably built in the 3rd century. The Welser Tiergarten is the city's zoo. Its roots lie in 1930. The city acquired the parkland of the Herminenhof estate, which was used to expand the Volksgarten Park. A wildlife exhibition was held there during the Wales Folk Festival, and the city created a permanent exhibition based on that event. The area opened to visitors as the Hirschenwiese, which means deer meadow in English, and this would become the basis of the current zoo. An aviary was opened in 1933. However, the zoo's operations were interrupted during the Second World War, after which the deer park was re-established. But the zoo became run down, and then from 1978 onwards extensive renovations were carried out. Research at the zoo forms the basis for animal and species conservation and reintroduction projects. Research projects are wide-ranging and include problem-solving skills and reproductive behaviour in monkeys, as well as communication in birds. The Tiergarten is the oldest zoo in Upper Austria, covering 2.8 hectares. It's home to around 90 species, with a particular focus on birds and primates. The zoo is owned by the city of Wels, which is responsible for its upkeep and funding. It's open year-round and is one of the few zoos in Austria with free admission. The zoo has a snack bar, several children's playgrounds, and a chess area. The history of the Wels Zoo is closely linked to the creation of the public park. In 1879, the Wels Beautification Society received permission to create a park on the grounds in front of the Volksfesthalle, which is now the Stadthalle. The park was officially named the Volksgarten, which means People's Garden in English, by a resolution of the Municipal Council on November the 4th, 1880. In here there's also a nice pond with a fountain and lots of ducks. There were also some closed fairground rides here. In fact, the Welser Messe or Wels Exhibition Centre adjoins the Volksgarten, and it hosts a popular folk festival twice yearly. The Welser Volksfest includes a festival tent, regional food and drink, and an amusement park with rides. In 2025, work was underway on a big extension to the Volksgarten. These shots show demolition work on the old exhibition halls that occupied the site next to the Traun River. Thousands of tons of material created during this work were recycled on site, and some of that will be used for the construction and landscaping of the expanded park. Just a short walk from the city centre is the Traunuferweg, or Traun Riverside Path in English. This route for walkers and cyclists stretches for many kilometres up and downstream, and there are also long but not continuous stretches of path along the opposite riverbank. An educational hike alongside the river is possible by following the Planetenweg, or Planet's Path, which is a 1 to 1 billion scale model of the solar system. It stretches along the northern bank of the Traun River from the Sun at the old Traun Bridge all the way to Pluto, which is several kilometres downstream. Glass display cases containing models of the planets are labelled with information on their sides. This one is Mercury. Just upstream from the start of the Planetenweg and close to the riverside path is this metal sculpture. It's called Bewegung, which means movement in English, and artist Ziggy Strasser's lamella ellipse design reflects Johannes Kepler's first law, which states that planets move in elliptical orbits. Next to the Traun River and near the Bewegung sculpture is information about the Roman city of Ovilava, as Wels was then called. The information boards are part of a 242-kilometre route that follows Roman history in the region. It's called the Römer Radweg, which means Roman cycle route in English. The Traun River originates in the Alps and is a 153-kilometre long right tributary of the Danube, which it joins at the city of Linz. The water quality is good and it's popular for recreational activities including rowing and fishing. But the fastest boats on the river belong to the Feuerwehr, which means fire brigade in English. Several dams on the river produce hydroelectricity. This one is several kilometres downstream of Wels city centre. It's called Kraftwerk Marktrenk, which means Marktrenk Power Station in English. It produces over 170 million kilowatt hours of green electricity yearly, enough for over 49,000 households. Between Wels and the hydroelectric dam is the new Römerbrücke. It's a covered bridge for pedestrians and cyclists. It opened in 2025 and connects the city with the community of Schleißheim. It's strengthened with steel inside, but outwardly it has a wooden construction that's really attractive. Römerbrücke means Roman bridge in English. The bridge celebrates the Roman history of Wels, and there may well have been a wooden Roman bridge near Wels, or Ovilava as it was called in Roman times, but I've seen no evidence that the Romans constructed covered bridges. Upstream from the new bridge, several bridges across the Traun River join Wels to the neighbouring town of Thalheim by Wels. The first one is this concrete bridge which carries traffic out of Wels past Thalheim and towards the motorway and the Alps. And next upstream is another footbridge. It's called the Trodatsteg after the local Trodat company that built it, and it opened in 2004. And not far upstream from the Trodatsteg is the Alte Traunbrücke, which means Old Traun Bridge in English. It's an iron bridge that carries lots of road traffic as well as pedestrians. Thalheim is smaller than Wels, but has a population of several thousand. It has its own Gemeindeamt, which is equivalent to a town hall, plus plenty of shops and other facilities such as general and specialist doctors' surgeries. The next bridge upstream is the railway bridge for the local Almtalbahn trains. It can also be crossed on foot. And then there is the Angerlenersteg footbridge, which connects Wels with Thalheim and the Angerlener Museum. Beyond the Angerlenersteg footbridge, another bridge carries the Autobahn inside a soundproof concrete tube. The Angerlener Museum is a private museum for contemporary art in Thalheim by Wels, which opened in 2013. Its collection includes paintings from 1950 onwards, and it has a particular focus on artists from Upper Austria and on Austrian painting and its development over the last 50 years. Nearby, on Rheinberg Hill in Thalheim, archaeologists have uncovered a Roman villa. By 2025, 1,000 square metres of ruins were uncovered, including 6 water basins, and 3 of those contained well-preserved mosaics. You can see dolphins on one of the mosaics. Also on the Rheinberg Hill is the Marienwarte, an observation tower. It was opened on July 7, 1892. People living in the Traun River valley of Wels and Thalheim don't see the Alps, but the viewing platform of the Marienwarte is located at about 390 metres above sea level. So this is the place to go for a great view over Wels and the Traun River, and from here the Alps cover pretty much the entire southern horizon. It's such a wide-angle view of so many mountains. It's awe-inspiring. So that's Wels. It's a small city that seems to get bigger once you explore it and discover its long history. But it's not overwhelmed with tourists, and if you like smaller cities with interesting architecture and a story spanning many centuries, it's a good place to see. And it's right on the main railway line between Vienna and Salzburg, so it's easy to get to. Worth a visit, I think. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment and subscribe.